Yo guys, what is everybody saying? The other day we saw the much anticipated Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley, and we saw Jake Paul go the distance for the first time. Woodley also rocked Jake Paul. This is the first time that anyone had really rocked Jake Paul. He has barely been laid a glove on in his last fight, so Tyron Woodley lived up to the expectations of being his hardest fight, but didn't live up to the expectations of winning the fight, which many people expected him to do. Many people knew that this is Jake's hardest opponent and thought that Tyron Woodley should win easily. And even with looking at the fight in hindsight, many people feel and felt during it and after it that Woodley didn't do enough and maybe could have still won it with how the fight was going. Woodley was almost seemed to let Jake Paul off in moments. There was the moment especially where he had rocked him and caught him, I believe, with a big right, and he just almost took the rest of the round off and didn't really throw again, and didn't throw for several rounds where it was just looking very strange. You get me? I think a lot of people were surprised to see how inactive Woodley was in the ring, especially when it came to taking advantage of moments where Jake Paul was hurt.
Jab, throw out the jab, man.
I'd love to know, on average, how many punches he's thrown per round, because it must be a pathetic amount.
With Tyron Woodley, man, like, Tyron Woodley just wasn't active. Tyron Woodley didn't do anything. He wasn't, he didn't capitalize when he hit him with the big right hand in the fourth round. He kind of just stared at him, and he kind of just followed him around the ring. He didn't cut him off. There's so much, Woodley didn't do, and he kind of just let Jake off.
Did you talk to him before and say, look, if you get tired, bro, just let me know and I'll allow you, because I don't want to finish you off. That's what it looks like.
Well, you think Woodley's so gun-shy?
Come on, man. Let your hands go.
I, for one, found it particularly strange because I believe, in the UFC, once your opponent is hurt, that's usually a time to pounce in the most aggressive nature. Well, I thought that Tyron Woodley would be able to bring that to the boxing ring, but clearly not. It was the complete polar opposite. He was so inactive and not punishing at all, and didn't have any killer instinct. Jake Paul, on the other hand, he was very active. He even seemed to lose a lot of energy at one point of the fight, but was still throwing and still boxing well, where he won clearly 6-2, 6 rounds to 2. And I just kind of took the fight at face value and gave it up to Jake Paul, as I think everyone should after taking out Woodley. So like I said, I took it at face value and just felt Woodley didn't do what I thought he was clearly capable of, whether that's down to freezing in the moment or just not being able to transfer his UFC skills to the boxing ring. I just took it as it is what it is, and salute to Jake Paul. But at the end of the fight was a moment that raised an eyebrow for me. At first, when Tyron Woodley was trying to make claims that he had won and trying to call for a rematch, Jake Paul was responding accordingly how I felt he should, and saying, like, I'm moving on. Why would that be necessary? I mean, he literally just beat Tyron Woodley so clearly, where I felt like that's the appropriate response. There's no reason to entertain a rematch.
You had your opportunity.
So you don't want to fight me again?
I will.
We moving on. I do.
Hey, you old news, fam. You had your chance.
But then they slowly transition into this little back and forth of if you get a tattoo, saying I love Jake Paul, then I'll give you the rematch. And it almost just transitioned into what felt like a little produced element there.
If you get the tattoo,
I'm not scared running back.
If you get the tattoo, I love Jake Paul. Let's run it back.
Bet. Let's go. Bet.
Deal.
Make the bet.
Even just take a look at Logan Paul's face in this moment when they're agreeing the terms of what could make a rematch. It felt a little extra strange because, as I was saying earlier, I feel there's just no cause for a rematch. Jake Paul defeated Woodley clearly. And that's just what made it even feel more like, this is out of nowhere and doesn't even really add up or make too much sense. It almost immediately gave me the vibes of where Logan Paul and KSI had not so subtly transitioned into their already pre-agreed rematch that they already had in the rematch clause.
I mean, Logan, I think there's only one thing to do. I think we got a rematch. Holy crap. Yo, let's do it. That was fun. Holy shit. I'm down, bro. Let's do it again. Logan, wait, are you done for a rematch? I think it's what the people want.
That was done at the end of KSI Logan 1, and you know that's how they kind of brought up the KSI Logan 2 that was already agreed to, even though they were acting like this was a fresh new idea in that little post-fight interview. But you know, I have a whole video breaking down how that situation went. But yeah, it kind of immediately gave me those vibes, and then it kind of makes you call back to Tyron Woodley's like patience in the ring. You know, I'm not here to call this whole fight rigged. I still give him credit to Jake Paul, like how I mentioned previously. I think he deserves it. However, though, I cannot lie. In this fight where a rematch would be so unnecessary, if a rematch was to happen, that's when I'll feel like, okay, all right, then there was probably this was probably rigged, and you know, you start adding all the other little things that we've noticed. That's when it can be called into play, in my opinion. For now, though, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I feel like that's a telltale thing to look out for. If an actual rematch happens, if this actual tattoo is done, which is so far being entertained on social media, but I know they could just be dragging it out for the hype and the attention. But, you know, I feel like it's a worthy talking point because, like I said, we've seen it before, and we might be seeing it again in front of our eyes where, you know, if that rematch pops up, don't be too surprised. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.
How am I 23, sitting on 23? I feel like Jordan, I'm back in my prime. This year's in the making, shit, why would I lie? Dreaming of the whip, now I don't even drive. I got a chauffeur, she told me I'm driving her crazy. She hate what I'm doing online.